Okay, we're back. As you can see, the tree's in the same state as where we left it with the Sawzall. This is what is called a die grinder, a long shaft die grinder. This is what Makita makes, and this is what a lot of people use to do their grinding for bonsai. The one that Makita has, like I said before, I think they're anywhere from about $130 to $160. This one's like $30, $29. It's made by a company called Chicago Electric, and it can be found at Harbor Freight. If you buy one of these, I recommend that you buy the extended warranty if you plan on doing a lot of carving. I did. The first one that I've got of these, the switch burned up. It's made of inferior componentry to the Makita. I just can't find a Makita. I'd like to have a Makita. I could probably budget for the Makita. It's just finding one and finding one at the right price. I'm kind of frugal when it comes to things like this. I don't use it a lot. I don't have trees that I got to do a lot of carving to anymore, so I can't justify the extra expense. The bit that I'm using is made from a company called Kutzall. I'm going to show you the actual thing that comes with it so you can see exactly what it says. Kutzall is the name of the company. This can be found at any specialty woodworking shop. This is called Kutzall Original Coarse, and the type is called a ball nose. Okay, I've got a couple of these. I've got a cone, I've got a ball nose, and then there's a long slender one as well for getting inside doing detail work. These are not cheap also. This one was $21.50. So there are some folks in Europe. Graham Potter, as a matter of fact, has one that he's developed called the Weasel and a Terrier. I would love to get my hands on one, but again, it's $125 plus shipping just for the cutting bit. These do work well. On the green wood like this, they will load up. The best way I've found to clean them is I have a small butane torch. I let it spin and I hit it with the butane torch, and the butane torch burns the wood out of it, turns into ash, and cleans it up completely. It doesn't compensate the cutting heads whatsoever. They're actually diamond coated tungsten carbide cutting heads on here, and that's what I utilize. This thing is extremely noisy, so we're going to have to wear ear protection and eye protection when using it. I'm not going to show the video of me doing the carving because it's just absolutely way too noisy. I may show you the initial part of the carving, but I'm not going to show you all of it. The material removal that I need to do on this is probably going to take me a good 30 to 45 minutes, because this thing does do some fairly decent removal of material, but it's not like it hogs it out. I mean, it's a fine, it's almost like a rasp. It's almost like a rotating rasp is the best thing I can explain this as being. So it does take quite a bit of time to remove the stock material, and you don't need to be seeing me doing 45 minutes of that. So we'll go ahead and start it. I'll show you the process that I'm going to start with, and then we'll cut to after the carving is done. So what I do, I always have two hands on the thing. You have vents here that you need to let air come through, so you want to keep those out of your hand. But I'll normally hold it like this, two hands, and I use my left hand, which is my dominant hand, normally on this portion of it, because that way I can rest my fingers on the material and then I can guide it where I want it to go. And then I'll switch from to this side, for instance, and I'll take it here and I'll guide it, always having a hand on the material, because if not, it'll have a tendency to want to do this on you. So you always put your hand on the material to stabilize it, and then you use this almost like a fulcrum, and you move it like this, and you guide it to where you want it to go. And that's the best way I've found to use this piece of equipment. So we'll go ahead and start it. I'll start the process, then we're going to cut from here to after the carving is finished. I recommend also using ear protection with this. Don't really have any ear, it's noisy. Okay, we are back after several minutes of carving with that tool. Luckily, I don't know if it's because the tree is frozen or the ground's frozen, or maybe there's not a lot of sap movement in it. It didn't really bind up any material in the carving bit, and it was carving wonderfully. So this is as far back as I'm going to take it. I'm going to show you the side here. Right here is our dormant budding area, and I'm a good 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch away from it, both directions. Carve the rear of the tree. Okay. I've carved this side of the tree. Now remember, this side of the tree didn't really have any dormant bud areas. There is one actually right down here, and even though it's a good, I don't know, 2 inches or better from where the cut site is, if it does throw a bud, that will still help in this healing process. But we got to be careful about this one because it's almost directly across from where this branch is here. We don't want to have a T-bar situation going on. So we could let a sacrificial branch grow here, but before it starts swelling up too bad, we'd have to cut it off. This is where I see the front of the tree being, somewhere right in here. After consideration of where the first branch is, and this is, I guess, the second branch, and now the apex. It does look a little funny right now, I'll have to admit, and that will actually go away once that apex thickens up. My projected thickening of this apex is going to be about that wide. So when the apex thickens up to about that wide, you won't see any of this here. It'll just be branch. So that'll take care of a good majority of that. You don't want to take too much off, because if you take too much off, then it's going to look even sillier after, and then you'd end up having a reverse taper situation. So I'd rather have more taper, wider, closer to this area, than do an undercut like this on both sides and then end up with a reverse taper situation above that area. That's the same way I did it with my other smaller trident maple that you've seen, and you saw how it turned out. It turned out great. So I've done the same technique on this tree as I did on the smaller trident maple that you saw a video of here a few videos ago. Now it's just a matter of cleaning up these carving sites on the back. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going all the way around this with either an X-Acto knife, a razor blade, or I actually have a really razor sharp grafting knife. And I want to make it a clean cut all the way around where I just did my carve, and that clean cut is very important. After you do the clean cut, immediately put cut paste on there. The clean cut actually helps the callousing material produce faster than if you had this transitional type of carving fuzzy. It's real fuzzy in here. So it's very important, if you're using one of those cut saws, to come back again with either a razor blade or a very sharp knife and just cut it off nice and flat all the way back to green, where you can see green in the cambrium, all the way around this area. And then after that, you want to put your cut paste on there. That locks it in, keeps it from oxidizing or drying out, I guess you could say, and it'll make that callousing grow twice as fast as if you were just to leave it the way it is now and then put cut paste on there. So that's the next thing that we're going to do on this. After that, I believe I'm going to go ahead and do a thread graft to the rear, somewhere right in this area here, with this branch, and then we'll come back and take a look at the tree, and we'll pretty much wrap it up from there. Okay, folks, here we are. I'll make sure the camera's showing the front that I want you to see is the front. Somewhere right in that vicinity is where I see the front of the tree. Somewhere probably right around in there. So all the work's done for this year. We got the thread graft completed. I did have a little bit of split to the outer bark, but not the Cambrian layer over here, so I did put a little cut paste on there just to help. I don't think it's going to kill the branch from that little teeny piece. Now, of course, if the branch would have snapped in half, then yeah, it's dead, and there's nothing you can do about it. But it just started to make those little creaky cracking noises, and when it does that, you stop. You don't want to go any further, because the first cracking noise you hear is the Cambrian layer. The second crack you hear is the branch breaking. So we were able to get the thread graft done nonetheless, so we're good there. All the wound paste is applied. You can see over here on this side, this is the leader that we're going to keep for this branch on this side. This branch over here we're just going to let grow so it can thicken up. That's what we need it to do. Apex as well. Apex on this tree, it's already probably 5 feet tall. It needs to get to about 15 feet tall before we cut it off, because that'll give us the proper size here that we need. I did do a little bit of brushing away of the nabari, so you can see the nabari. Hopefully you can. If you can't, I'm going to, actually at the end of the video, I'm going to tilt the camera up a little bit and shoot the nabari so you can actually see the nabari well. I'm going to do a quick 360 here, show you a couple other small attributes on the tree, and we'll be finished with this one for the season. One I want to point out straight away is I've got lots of dormant bud sites down here, and I've got a bud actually swelling right here in this location. I've got all this massive thing right here. As we come around towards the back, you'll see right here's a dormant branch. It's above the bottom branch, so I've got a back branch here. There's a dormant bud here well above the bottom branch as well. Our bud site up here, which hopefully will give us some back budding and a branch here for sacrificial purposes, is right in this location. Right here's our thread graft that we did. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 nodes worth of thread graft through the back, which is more than enough. But I've got dormant buds here, here, this one here, 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 here. There's a lot of them all over the back of the tree. We'll continue around. I'm going to allow this branch to stay on here because it's an upward growing branch. I'm going to let it grow free and unchecked, which will help thicken this portion of the trunk. But once it does get a little bit large and we start seeing some unsightly swelling here, I will have to cut it off. I've got another branch right here that's right below it, which will act as the branch that we're going to keep for the final design. But having this growing freely and having all of this out here growing freely, this extension growth out here growing freely, will help thicken this branch up tremendously. You can hear that squeaking noise is actually the apex of the tree on the ceiling of my workshop.